Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
In a shocking turn of events, the writers for the Game of Thrones show, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, have left the Star Wars franchise before their planned trilogy even began production. Their trilogy was originally supposed to start in December of 2022, but that is no longer the plan. Speaking the deadline, the pair said, "We love Star Wars. When George Lucas built it, he built us too. Getting to talk about Star Wars with him and the current Star Wars team was the thrill of a lifetime, and we will always be indebted to the saga that changed everything. But there are only so many hours in the day, and we feel we could not do justice to both Star Wars and our Netflix projects, so we are regretfully stepping away." Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy had this to say about the pair leaving Star Wars: "David Benioff and Dan Weiss are incredible storytellers. We hope to include them in the journey forward when they are able to step away from their busy schedule to focus on Star Wars." So it sounds like there's some potential for these two to make a Star Wars film or trilogy in the future, but not anytime soon. And for a lot of fans, this may come as good news, since these two have gotten a lot of backlash over the awful ending of the beloved Game of Thrones show. But due to the show's popularity, they have also gained a lot of attention and lucrative deals with people like Lucasfilm for Star Wars. HBO had them planned for a Confederate show before they canceled that for the Star Wars trilogy they were supposed to be working on, and now it seems they would rather focus on their Netflix deal instead of making a new trilogy of Star Wars films, which really makes you question how big of fans they truly were about the franchise if they're so quick to step away from it right before things started to begin. I personally think this isn't bad news. After seeing them work with no source material in the season 8 of Game of Thrones, I don't think they would have been the best fit to write and produce an entire Star Wars trilogy. And it's kind of odd that they suddenly stepped away from Star Wars around the time they would have started working on their films. My personal opinion, I feel like Lucasfilm maybe saw some story treatments or some scripts that these two guys had to offer and realized after the Game of Thrones Season 8 ending, these guys had no idea what the fuck they were doing. But, you know, I rest my case. There's a lot of ins and out that go into business here. One of the big questions now, though, is going to be who will replace them for the Star Wars film that will be released in December of 2022. The other two confirmed release dates are also in December of 2024 and 2026. And to be honest with you, I think Rian Johnson just took the front seat of the next Star Wars trilogy and will likely be returning to Star Wars in the year 2022 to start his new trilogy and have Kevin Feige producing it as well. Now, if you remember, Rian was planning on returning to Star Wars after the year 2019 because of his new film, Knives Out, but the big hurdle at the time, or at least what we were told, was the scheduling conflict that Lucasfilm had with finding a time frame to release his trilogy, the Rian Johnson trilogy, while also releasing the David Benioff and D.B. Weiss trilogy that was set to release in the year 2022. But now that those two guys are gone, it seems like nothing is stopping Lucasfilm from bringing Rian Johnson back, considering they're planning on working with him to schedule things out after 2019 anyways. I know a lot of Star Wars fans don't even believe that the Rian Johnson trilogy is happening, but that's honestly just wishful thinking off of baseless rumors. But if it's not Rian Johnson returning, I'd love to see some new blood in the Star Wars franchise in terms of writing and directing. Don't forget, Lucasfilm also reached out to the writers of the Quiet Place movie. They possibly could have been involved with Star Wars. They don't seem to be willing to do that now, but I honestly think, I've always said it, Jon Favreau is a great choice. Not just to write, but also to come in and direct a Star Wars film. He may be busy with his show, The Mandalorian, and other projects with Disney, but I really think Jon Favreau has proven his merit already in the Star Wars fandom, and I think he'd be a great choice. And some fans would even say Dave Filoni should do it, but that's also fans not realizing that he has no experience with massive projects like this, and I think he needs more experience with projects like The Mandalorian and other things that are live action other than just the animated shows that he's done before he helms a Star Wars film, let alone an entire trilogy. Another option Lucasfilm has is to simply make the 2022 film another spin-off film. It could be 4 years after the Solo: A Star Wars Story, which was a flop in the box office in 2018, but if the character in the story is right in this film, it could potentially work. Don't forget the Kenobi film turned into a Kenobi series because of the Solo flop, but in the year 2022, if they can't get anything set up, you really could have a good spin-off film about Boba Fett or other characters. There's a lot of possibilities that you have in the Star Wars universe to make a spin-off film about. But it really all boils down to if Rian Johnson is taking the reins for the 2022 film and starting his trilogy earlier than expected. He's definitely the leading candidate right now. There's a lot of potential for new people in the Star Wars world, and if Rian Johnson is doing the film in 2022 and starting his trilogy, he's got to get that script going, and from everything I've seen, he doesn't even know what his trilogy is going to be about yet. yet. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And one thing's for sure, Lucasfilm needs to act fast if they're still planning on keeping that release schedule for 2022, 2024, and 2026. With only 3 years now before 2022's film, it's best to get the script ready to go and the production slate scheduled. If not, we may have another rushed trilogy like the sequels, and let's be honest, no one wants to repeat a bad production history like that. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's good news that these two have stepped away from the Star Wars universe, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, simply because I don't think they're great writers. And if you listen to some of the stuff they said recently, I think at a film festival, they really weren't knowledgeable about making films and into the process of making films as people would expect. It was their first time doing a show like that. They really didn't even know how to work with costume designers on the show. I can't imagine them producing and writing an entire trilogy of Star Wars films. And I think people at Lucasfilm like Kathleen Kennedy realized they really had no idea what the fuck they were doing, and they're really not that great of writers. But that's just my personal opinion. I may be biased because I thought they fucked up the entire ending of Game of Thrones Season 8, but I rest my case. The future of Star Wars may have just gotten better, but honestly, it just got a lot more confusing. But tell me your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Who do you think should take the place of David Benioff and D.B. Weiss for the 2022 film? And what do you think is going to happen afterwards? The 2024 and 2026 film may be up for grabs with any directors. We could have 3 potential spin-off films. We could have a Rian Johnson trilogy. We have a lot of possibilities now in the Star Wars universe. But you only have 3 years to do it. And, I mean, it's better than 2 years like J.J. Abrams had to do with Episode 9. But, yeah, clock's ticking, and we don't got a lot of time. So tell me your thoughts below. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe because it does help out the channel. I'll see y'all next time. And may the Force be with you, always.